I'm Adrienne Morgan, and I was never the daughter my parents were proud of. At family dinners, my name was barely mentioned, unless it was to compare me to my sister, Talia, the golden child in uniform. They thought I was just the quiet one, the tech nerd. They had no idea I was building a life in secret, no idea I'd one day wear a uniform of my own, one they'd never expect. And they definitely weren't prepared for what happened the night her commander saluted me. Growing up in the Morgan household was like living in a military museum. Our walls were covered in medals, plaques, and framed photos of my dad in full Navy dress, standing proud on the deck of an aircraft carrier. The Morgan name was synonymous with service, duty, and tradition, and apparently I was the only one who didn't measure up. My sister, Talia, older by 2 years, walked a path carved in gold. By 16, she was already being scouted by Air Force prep academies. By 22, she had graduated with honors, and every holiday after that was just another chance for my parents to praise her newest stripe or medal. Me? I was the girl who loved puzzles, built drones in the garage, and coded apps for fun. When I won first place in the state robotics championship in 10th grade, I remember placing the certificate proudly on the dinner table. My dad glanced at it once, then turned to Talia. "How's your ROTC training going, sweetheart?" That moment stuck like a splinter under my skin. I tried to shake it off, thinking maybe I just needed to try harder. So I joined the swim team, broke a school record, and even captained the debate squad to nationals. When I brought home a trophy for the regional debate finals, my mom smiled and said, "That's great, honey. You've always been creative." But creative wasn't a compliment in our house. Not like disciplined, very tactical, or combat ready. The real turning point came senior year. My dad sat me down with brochures from Annapolis, like it was already decided. "With your last name and my connections, you could go far in the Navy, Adrienne. You'd be stupid not to." But I didn't want to follow the same script. I chose Georgia Tech. I wanted to study cybersecurity and systems defense. Still military adjacent, but not traditional. Not enough for my father. "Guess she's trading boots for keyboards," he muttered to my mom in the kitchen that night. "Not everyone's built for command." Talia laughed. "At least she won't mess up anything important behind a desk." What they didn't know, what I never told them, was that I was building something quietly, piece by piece. I was watching, listening, and remembering. Because this was never just about proving them wrong. It was about proving to myself that I was never who they thought I was. My parents loved Talia for who she became. They tolerated me for who I wasn't. And while she soared through the ranks, featured in base newsletters and saluted at airfields, I kept coding, training, reading military strategy manuals in my dorm room like scripture. Not because I wanted to compete, because I had a vision no one else saw coming. There was a Thanksgiving when Talia came home in full dress uniform, crisp and radiant, and my dad asked her to say the family prayer. I offered to carve the turkey. My mom waved me off. "Let your sister sit, she's earned it." I smiled. I always smiled. I had gotten good at swallowing things. That was the year I applied, secretly, to officer candidate school. The same year I stopped waiting for my parents to see me. I'd spent my whole life being underestimated, ignored, looked down on for not choosing their version of greatness. And that was fine, because I was writing a different kind of revenge story, one where I didn't scream to be noticed, one where I'd earn their respect not by asking for it, but by becoming someone they'd never dare look past again. It was the silence that got to me most. Not the loud insults, not the public comparisons, just the small, sharp silences. Like the one when I told my dad I'd been accepted into Georgia Tech's cyber defense program, top 3% of applicants. He looked up from the kitchen table, nodded once, and said, "At least it's close to home." No congratulations. No, I'm proud of you. Just close to home. That sentence stuck with me for weeks, and every time I looked at that acceptance letter, all I could hear was his voice. Not good enough. Meanwhile, Talia's college graduation was a military affair. Literally. She got her Air Force officer's bars, Mom wept through the entire ceremony, and Dad brought out his old dress blues just to match the occasion. The living room was filled with photos, champagne, a little American flag stuck into a cake. When I graduated, I got a gift card and a voicemail. "Call us when you get time, honey." That summer, I stopped hoping they'd notice me. I just got to work. By day, I interned with a small cybersecurity firm contracted with the Navy. By night, I trained, swam laps before dawn, practiced weights and endurance in secret. I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to fight for their approval anymore. I was going to earn my own damn worth. That was when I stumbled on the classified notice. Pilot program, Naval Special Warfare, female candidates eligible, clearance level Tier 3+. I clicked it without thinking. My hands were shaking. This wasn't some TikTok challenge. This was SEAL territory. Hell Week, demolition training, combat ops. You'll never survive it. That voice in my head sounded like Talia, but I submitted the form anyway. Weeks later, I was pulled into a back room by my supervisor, Commander Ray Foster, a quiet man with frost in his hair and steel in his eyes. He slid a file across the desk. "Your aptitude scores are off the charts, Morgan," he said. "You ever think of doing something bigger than back-end firewalls?" I didn't know what to say. He looked at me for a long second. "Something tells me you're not just here for code." That was all it took. I was in. The next 9 months were the hardest of my life. I was running obstacle courses at 3 a.m., swimming in freezing water until I couldn't feel my legs. My toenails fell off, my shoulders tore, I bled, I cried, but I didn't quit. Every insult from my childhood played like a loop in my head. Adrienne's the soft one. She's book smart, not real-world smart. She couldn't handle it. I used them like fuel. There was one night during a brutal night hike with a 60-pound ruck that I nearly collapsed. I was soaked, shivering, knees locking. One of the instructors leaned down and said, "Still think you belong here, sweetheart?" I looked him straight in the eyes and whispered, "More than you do." That night, I wrote a sentence in my journal over and over again. You don't need to be seen to be powerful. It became my mantra. But you know what stuck with me the most? It wasn't the training. It wasn't the pain. It was thinking about the day I'd finally show up in front of my parents, still in uniform, and they wouldn't recognize me, because they'd never bothered to look past what they assumed. And that still pisses me off when I think about it. Be honest. Have you ever had someone write you off before they even knew who you were? Drop it in the comments if you've lived that kind of silence. Sometimes the quietest dismissal hurts more than the loudest insult. Back then, I wasn't thinking revenge story. I was just thinking, let me be more than their expectations. Let me be better, without having to prove it to them. But deep down, somewhere in the cracks of my pride and pain, I think a part of me wanted them to eat their words. By the time I completed selection, I was one of only 3 women to make it through. Commander Foster handed me my patch. His voice was calm, but his eyes held pride. "You're a ghost now," he said. "No one knows you're out there, but you'll know, and you'll lead." I walked out of that training facility a different person, stronger, sharper, not louder, but unshakable. My name was Adrienne Morgan, and they still thought I was answering phones in some back office. Let them. I learned real fast that SEAL training doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care if you're a woman or smart or secretly carrying years of resentment under your ribs. All it cares about is whether you'll break. And trust me, I almost did. Day 1 of BUD-S, the infamous basic underwater demolition SEAL training, started with a bell and a warning. "Most of you won't make it," barked Chief Rollins, our lead instructor. And frankly, I don't care who does. There were 83 of us lined up in the sand that morning, only 4 women. Me? I kept my head down. The others didn't. I heard it immediately. "What's she doing here?" "Guess the Navy's letting anyone in now." "She better not slow us down." One guy, Harris, looked me up and down like I was a bad joke. "Hope you're not afraid to get that pretty little uniform dirty." I didn't respond. I just noted his name. The physical training was brutal, running miles in sand, carrying 200-pound logs on our shoulders. ocean swims in freezing Pacific water that made your bones feel like glass. Some nights, I lay on my bunk, body shaking uncontrollably, unable to grip my toothbrush, and that was just week 1. But the worst wasn't the cold. It wasn't the pain or the exhaustion or even the moments I thought my heart would give out mid-run. It was the looks, the constant watching, waiting for me to fail, waiting for me to prove them right. During a navigation drill, Harris tried to get into my head. "Just quit now, Morgan. No shame in admitting you're out of your league." I beat him in every category that day: map reading, time efficiency, team strategy. He didn't say a word to me after that. Hell Week came fast. 5 days, less than 5 hours of sleep, constant cold, chaos, and noise. You carry boats above your head for miles. You roll in the surf till your skin goes raw. You do sit-ups while instructors dump ice water on your chest and scream in your ear. People ring out left and right. The bell that means I quit rang all night. By day 3, we were down to half. By day 5, only 23 of us remained, 2 women. And I was one of them. There was one moment I'll never forget. It was midnight. We were chest deep in the ocean, arms locked with our team. Waves crashed over us every 30 seconds. The cold was indescribable. One guy started sobbing. Another whispered, "This is it. I'm done." I stared into the blackness, teeth chattering, remembering my dad's voice. Adrienne's not built for command. And I thought, if I survive this, no one ever gets to say that to me again. After Hell Week, something shifted. The instructors didn't say much, but their nods meant more than words. My teammates started trusting me. Even the guys who had laughed on day 1 began following my lead during drills. And then came the biggest test, pool comp. It's designed to break you underwater, literally. You're blindfolded, dumped into a pool, and instructors tangle your air hose, flip you, spin you, and cut off your air supply. It simulates panic, drowning, helplessness. I failed the first attempt. I panicked, fumbled, surfaced too early. Chief Rollins said nothing, just wrote something on his clipboard. That night, I sat alone in the locker room, hands shaking. Maybe this is where it ends. But then I remembered Talia's voice in my head. "You'd be better off doing admin work, Adrienne. Something safe." That lit something in me. The next day I passed. Clean. Held my breath longer than I ever had. Untangled every knot. Surfaced calm. Rollins looked me in the eye and muttered, "Didn't think you had it in you." That was the closest thing to a compliment I'd ever get from him. After pool comp, they started putting me in command during simulations. Firefight in mock villages, hostage extractions. I coordinated, made calls, got people out. I wasn't the fastest or strongest, but I was strategic, calm, lethal when I needed to be. By the end of Phase 2, my file was pulled. Commander Foster flew in. He handed me my team assignment and said, "You're not just one of the first, Morgan. You're one of the best." Of the 83 candidates who started BUDS, only 20 finished. One woman. Me. When I called home to say I'd finished some advanced training, my mom said, "Good for you, sweetheart. I'm sure it'll help with your desk job." Dad just said, "So, what's your next assignment? Filing reports?" I hung up the phone smiling. They still didn't know. And I wasn't going to be the one to tell them. Because the day they found out, I wanted them to hear it from someone they respected more than me. Someone who would say it publicly, clearly, in front of a room full of people who used to look down on me. My first official deployment came 6 weeks after graduation. No fanfare, no champagne, no "we're proud of you" calls from home. I boarded the transport plane in silence, tucked between hardened SEAL operators who barely looked at me. They didn't know me yet. They weren't sure if I'd earned my patch, or if I was just the Navy's diversity box checked off. But I wasn't there to prove anything to them. I was there to lead. The mission was classified, but the stakes were real. Hostage extraction in Syria. 12 U.S. military personnel captured during a convoy ambush outside Aleppo. My job, bring them home, alive. My team was skeptical at first. I could feel it in every sideways glance, every second guess during mission briefings. But once boots hit sand, everything changed. When our primary exfil route got compromised by enemy fire, I adjusted the plan in under 30 seconds. No panic, no drama, just logic. We rerouted, split fire teams, laid suppression, and peeled out with all 12 hostages, no casualties. When we touched down back at base, Daniels, one of the team's toughest operators, walked up and gave a single nod. "Good call, ma'am." That was it. In SEAL culture, that's a standing ovation. Over the next 4 years, I led missions across 4 continents: counterterrorism, recon, extraction, neutralization. No press, no credit, just whispers, just shadows. But inside that world, I earned my name, Commander Morgan. Outside that world, though, I was still Adrienne the analyst to my family, still the forgotten daughter in the corner. Every time I came back stateside, I'd get the same tired questions from my mom. "Are you eating enough? Still doing that paperwork stuff?" My dad wouldn't even ask. He'd just talk about Talia. "Your sister's heading up a new intelligence division, you know. She's really making waves." I'd nod, smile, keep the secrets buried. The texts from Talia were the worst. "Heard you're still stuck in intel? We've got a live op in Qatar next week. Big girl stuff." I never answered. Let her think I was pushing pencils while she played war. It was easier that way. Safer. Besides, my success didn't need their applause, or so I told myself. Then came the Aleppo Mission. We'd received fragmented intel that a U.S. unit, non-combat, was trapped in an industrial complex under heavy fire. Pinned for 2 days, no airlift window. My SEAL team was called in, nightfall op, split insertion, 0 margin for error, and it was a bloodbath. Bullets, debris, smoke. We lost comms halfway through. Our backup squad went dark. I made the call to draw fire, split my unit, and drag out every damn soldier we could. 20 lives saved. One of them, apparently, was a young Air Force intelligence officer stationed temporarily in the region. I didn't get his name. Didn't matter. Mission complete. No headlines. Just another classified report buried in the system. A month later, I got the email. "Adrienne, your sister's getting promoted to major. We're throwing a party. Please be there. It means a lot to the family. Mom." I almost deleted it. Almost. But then I remembered what Commander Foster once told me, back when I first made officer. Sometimes it's not about shouting who you are. It's about standing in the room and letting the silence break first. So I booked the flight. The promotion party was at some overpriced hotel in Charleston. Gold linen tablecloths, flag centerpieces, glittering name tags. You know the type. I walked in wearing a simple navy blue dress, not my uniform. Still blending in, still unseen. Mom rushed over. "Oh, honey, you made it. You look tired. Are you okay?" "Long flight," I said, forcing a smile. Dad was across the room, laughing with a retired admiral. He gave me a nod, curt, formal, distant. Talia spotted me by the dessert table. "Wow, Adrienne, didn't think you'd show. Still in intel?" She turned to her group of officers before I could answer. "My sister works in naval intelligence. She's probably sorting data somewhere while I'm briefing live targets." They chuckled. I clenched my jaw. "It keeps me busy," I said. She gave me a wink. That same condescending smirk I'd known since childhood. Mom, ever the peacemaker, swooped in. "Let's not start, girls. Adrienne came all this way to support you, Talia." "Sure," Talia said. "But let's be real. Adrienne's not exactly living up to the Morgan name." Dad raised his glass during dinner. "To Talia, for embodying what service, strength, and leadership look like." Applause erupted. I pushed a potato around my plate. Not a single word for me. No one asked what I'd been doing. No one cared. I don't know what stung more, being ignored or realizing I'd gotten so used to it that I didn't even flinch. They still saw me as the quiet, awkward daughter with the technical brain who couldn't handle the real world. They didn't know I'd been leading the most elite special ops in the Navy. They didn't know I had 12 medals locked in a vault under a number I wasn't allowed to say. They didn't know I'd saved lives, including one in that very room. But that was about to change. Dinner was wrapping up when it happened. People had just begun picking at their desserts. The air was thick with wine, laughter, and too many military acronyms. Talia stood, glass raised, her voice loud and clear. To the Air Force, to service, and to family. Polite applause followed. She smiled like she'd just won another award, and maybe she had. I stayed seated at the far end of the table, invisible as always. My parents beamed, soaking in the praise that came with having the right daughter. I took a sip of my wine, kept my head down, until I felt someone staring at me. Across the table, Talia's boyfriend, Captain Bradley Pierce, was frowning slightly, looking at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle he'd seen before. I avoided his eyes, but he didn't look away. As the applause faded, he stood, abrupt, sharp. His chair scraped against the marble floor. The room went still. He didn't glance at Talia, didn't ask permission. Instead, he turned toward me and snapped into a full salute. "Commander Morgan," he said, voice steady and firm. "Ma'am, it's an honor." The ballroom froze. You could have heard a pin drop on a rug. I blinked. The air left my lungs. Every head turned toward me, brows lifting, murmurs starting. My father dropped his fork. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Talia stiffened beside him, like someone had just slapped her. I think you've got the wrong person," I said carefully, keeping my voice even. "No, ma'am," he replied, unwavering. "You led the SEAL team that pulled my unit out of Syria, Aleppo. You saved my life." Gasps rolled through the room like thunder. Dad's face went pale. Mom's lip trembled. Talia's jaw dropped. "What are you talking about?" she snapped. "Adrienne's in intelligence. She files reports, not rescue missions." Bradley didn't flinch. "Ma'am, her team pulled 20 of us out of a death trap, split under fire, led the extraction, rerouted choppers. She didn't just save me." He paused, turning to Talia. "She saved you too." Silence. Thick, charged, unbelieving. Talia's eyes darted to mine, wide, unmoored. I was there," she whispered. She looked back at Bradley, her voice cracking. "You're saying she was the one who got us out?" Bradley nodded slowly. "I'd recognize her anywhere. I didn't know her name back then, but I never forgot her face." My father stood abruptly. "Adrienne," he said, almost growled. "Is this true?" I stood, reached into my jacket, slowly opened the inside flap, pulled out the one thing I never meant to show them. My SEAL Commander ID badge and patch. Gasps again, a sharp intake of breath from someone near the head table. Mom took a step back. Her hand trembled over her heart. "You've been doing this all these years?" "It's classified, Mom," I said gently. "I couldn't tell you. I followed orders." Talia exploded. "So what? This was your big moment? Let us all believe you were a nobody, just so you could steal my thunder tonight?" Her voice was sharp, cutting, defensive. "This isn't about you, Talia," I replied calmly. "It never was. I wasn't hiding this to hurt you. I did it because I was ordered to, because it's my job, because I was serving, even when you were laughing at me for it." Her lips curled. "You let me mock you, let everyone believe you were just pathetic. That's cruel." I looked her dead in the eyes. "What's cruel," I said, voice low but clear, "is a sister who never once asked who I was outside of your own shadow." Dad cleared his throat. His posture had changed, less upright, more human. "Adrienne, you led that mission?" "Yes, sir, I was team lead. We extracted 20, 0 losses. Including your sister. I didn't know until now." The silence returned, but this time it was heavy with respect. One by one, people started standing, not out of shock anymore, but out of recognition. Even the Admiral Dad had been talking to earlier approached me, extending a hand. "Commander," he said, "hell of an op." Bradley finally spoke again, his voice softer. "I didn't mean to compromise your cover, ma'am. I assumed your family knew." "It's done," I said. "There's no going back now." Talia sat down slowly, shoulders slumped. She couldn't look at me. My parents didn't say a word, not right away. Then my mom stepped forward, her eyes wet. "We didn't see you," she whispered. "You didn't try," I said. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the quiet one at the table. I wasn't the side note, the backup plan, the disappointment. I was Commander Morgan, and I had saved lives, including theirs. I didn't sleep much that night, not from adrenaline, but from everything that had come crashing out into the open. My parents offered me a guest room at their house. For the first time in a decade, I said yes. Maybe part of me wanted to see if anything had changed. Maybe part of me wanted to see if they had changed. The next morning, we sat in the living room like nothing had happened. Except everything had. Dad's Navy medals still lined the wall. Talia's photos in uniform still stood proud on the mantel. And now, for the first time, there was a framed newspaper clipping sitting beside them. A small article Bradley had printed out after the party. Headline, "Unconfirmed SEAL rescue may have saved 20 in Aleppo." No names, of course, but he'd circled a line and scribbled in the margin, "We know who did this." Dad poured coffee, sat on the edge of the couch like he didn't quite know how to be around me. "You really did all that," he finally said. "The training, the missions?" "Yeah," I said simply. He rubbed his face, and we had no idea. I stayed quiet. "I pushed you toward the Navy, but only the version I understood. I never thought you'd do it your way. Better, even." He looked at me. "I failed you." That caught me off guard. All my life, I had imagined hearing that, had imagined craving it. Now that I did, it felt small, not meaningless, but not everything I needed either. Mom sat next to me, holding her coffee with both hands like it kept her grounded. "I thought I knew who you were, Adrienne," she said. "I thought you were lost, drifting." She looked up. But it turns out I just wasn't looking hard enough. There were tears in her eyes, but not the kind I used to see. Tears of disappointment, guilt, or comparison. These were quiet, real. "We're proud of you. I wish we'd said that sooner." That part did hit me. I'd carried the weight of that sentence for years. Still, I didn't rush to comfort her. "You should have asked," I said, "not just assumed." She nodded, slowly. "We will, from now on." Talia was quieter than usual. She barely looked at me all morning. Eventually, she pulled me aside near the stairs where our voices wouldn't echo. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "You wouldn't have listened," I said. She didn't argue. "I would have teased you," she admitted. "Mocked you, probably, because I thought you were safe, predictable, underachieving." She paused. "I was jealous. I still am. You did something I couldn't." I met her gaze. "We're different, Talia. You shine loud, I don't. That doesn't mean I shine less." She gave a small, hollow laugh. "No, it means I owe you more than I can probably ever say." I didn't say, "It's okay," because it wasn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I said this. I didn't do it for your apology. I did it because I knew I was capable, even if no one else did. That was the truth, and she knew it. As I packed my things later that day, Dad came out to the driveway in his old Navy jacket, medals and all. He looked stiff, nervous. Then he raised his hand in a crisp salute. "Commander Morgan." My throat tightened, but I returned the salute. "Take care out there," he said quietly. "Come back safe." "I always do," I said. Mom hugged me at the door. No guilt, no pleading, just respect. At the airport, I typed a quick message to Talia. "When I'm back next time, let's talk, sister to sister." She replied 2 minutes later, "Deal. Just don't rescue me again, okay? No promises." I sent back. As the plane rose above Charleston, I looked down and felt something I hadn't in years. Not pride, not triumph, relief. Relief that I didn't have to be bitter forever. Relief that I'd never let their silence define me. Relief that finally they knew what I'd known all along. I wasn't a disappointment. I was just never seen, until now. Have you ever had to prove your worth to people who refused to see you? Was there ever a moment you wanted to scream, "I'm more than what you think I am," but stayed silent because you knew your moment would come? Drop your story in the comments. You never know who needs to read it tonight.